What's going on? What's going on, everybody? We are back. We are live on the social experiment. I got my man, Mr. Corey Cook, sitting here. He's waiting in the lobby for me. I'm getting everything loaded. I'm getting all the equipment and stuff geared up. I'm gonna make sure I make the post and the share all that before I actually pull him in. But again, I appreciate everybody for continuously coming on to the show, continuously watching, being a part of what's going on. I'm appreciating all the good feedback, all the responses that I've been getting from the people who've been watching and paying attention. We gonna keep building this thing, and we gonna keep growing. There we go. All right. All right. So, like I said, I got my man, Mr. Corey Cook. He's waiting in the lobby for us over here on the social experiment. We're gonna have a conversation with him. I'm not sure if you guys are too familiar with this man. I know Corey's been all over the place. I've seen him on Good Morning America. I seen him in the YMCA. He's doing his thing, working with the youth over there. Corey, I remember Corey from going to the Trinity Center. Him and some of his I don't know if they friends or cousins or whatever the case may be, but I definitely remember Corey from growing up at a young age, and he's always been, a positive man in the community. He's been a positive kid growing up. We kind of lost touch with each other as we turn into adults. But Erie is a small place. It's a very small place. It's community based type of family type of community. So we all kind of keep our eyes on one another, and we all know what each other's got going on. So we can all see each other, in some capacity or another. So Corey's been working hard. He's been out here putting his stamp on his city. He's been doing his media thing. I've seen his drones flying in the air. He just all over the place. So I'm gonna pull him into the room. I'm gonna allow him to introduce himself, and we're gonna go from there. But again, I appreciate everybody for coming on and watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like. Make sure you comment. Make sure you share. But without further ado, we are going to invite Mr. Corey Cook into the room. What's going on, sir? How you doing, man? How you feeling today?
Doing good.
Yeah,
Appreciate you having me on.
absolutely, man. I appreciate you for being a guest on the show. I appreciate, you being interested in having this conversation with me. Like I tell everybody, like we just working on, just changing the narrative on how we're viewed, how we're seen, also to work on highlighting some of the gentlemen and some of the men in our community who are doing great things, and I be seeing your name all over the place and I see your stamp all over the place. And you were one of the people that I thought that I should interview, as well as when I was asking people for names, people actually submitted your name and was like, "Yo, you got to talk to this guy." So I appreciate you being willing and able to come on the show. And I'm gonna start off with the first question that I ask everybody: like, what made you decide? You know what? Yeah, I'm gonna go on the show and I'm willing to have a conversation.
I just been loving what you've been doing, man. I've been paying attention, from afar, seeing what you've been doing. Got a chance to catch some of the interview with Anthony, a little bit of what you did with Brandon. So I love the positive conversation. Anything that we can do to promote positive, I'm all for it. I know that's been huge for you lately, so it was just honor and a privilege to come on, man.
Absolutely, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, and I'm glad that you kind of you catching what's going on and you seeing what we talking about, because that's definitely the plan. That's definitely the goal. So then I'm gonna ask, like, when I was going around and pretty much soliciting what I was doing, why do you think people were saying, "Yo, you got to get Corey on there. You got to talk to Corey"?
Maybe because of my experience, my background, I kind of been all over the spectrum a little bit. You mentioned it in the opening, working with youth over the years. Done that for probably the last 15 years. I've been in the corporate sector for 16 and a half years working at UPS. Now I'm doing some community development work. So I've kind of been in a lot of different places. But at the core of everything that I do, man, it's all about community development, the betterment of people. And so that's what I hope to convey on a daily basis.
Okay.
And the folks that recommended me coming on the show, hopefully they felt that. And that's the reason why they made the recommendation.
Okay. All right. So like, okay, so you saying like you pretty much doing work in the community, you community advocate, you out here, you want for the betterment of people. Why
Yeah.
is that something that's important to you?
It's something that I saw growing up. My parents were all about helping people, and then growing up in church as well. Church is a very community environment. It's community oriented. The neighborhood I grew up in, growing up, we knew our neighbors. We knew the people around us. I grew up on the Lower East Side, Six and Reed, and so you knew people, and that was important for me. It's what I saw. That was my example, and so that's what I've continued to do throughout my adult career.
Okay, that's what's up, man. So when you talk about some of that upbringing, you said like my parents. So like, as far as the household, what was the household like for you growing up? Like, tell me a little bit about your family structure.
Family structure. So I grew up in a two-parent household. My mom and my dad were both in the house. I have three siblings. I have a brother that's a local pastor. I have a sister who lives in New Jersey. She works for a community college out there, Brookdale Community College. And my oldest sister lives right outside of Pittsburgh in Monroeville, and she does work for Penn State Greater Allegheny.
Okay.
She working in the higher education field. But growing up, my dad, everybody who knows my dad, extremely hard worker, working 16-hour days, to provide for the family. So he was just like an example of hard work, dedication, determination. My mom was heavy in church. She kept us involved. So my mom didn't. She had her own business at one point. She's a seamstress as well.
Okay.
But a lot of what she did was she was really the rock and the foundation of the family. So she kept us involved in things. She's always been there for people outside of the family. So anytime, even now, sick and shut in list at the church, my mom is sending cards. She's visiting folks. So that was kind of my upbringing. It wasn't all peaches and cream, but definitely had good examples within the household of hard work, and then also people who are reaching out in the community and doing good things.
That's what's up, man. So it sounds like you had some solid roots, some solid foundation in your upbringing, man. That's what's up.
Yeah,
Um, especially so then like, oh, you got a brother and then two sisters. So it's two boys, two girls in the house, right?
yeah, yep.
So what was that like growing up? Were you the youngest, you the oldest? Where do you fall in line? I
So
heard you
I got my sister's the oldest, my
right.
oldest sister Erica. Then my brother Daryl, he's a local pastor. He's older than me. Then it's me, and then I have a younger sister. So my younger sister's the baby of the family. I'm second. So
So is it like a big age difference between you and your siblings, or was y'all like
we're all 3 years apart. So my sister was being the oldest. She's
okay,
3 years older than my brother. My brother is 3 years older than me, and then I'm 2 years older than my youngest sister.
okay, all right.
That's kind of the spread on that.
That's what's up, man. So then, like you said, you talk about your father being a hardworking man,
Yeah,
working them 16-hour shifts, and then your mother being like the rock of the family. And that's pretty much like how it is, for us, like growing up or coming up. We have our moms who hold us down. You know what I mean? Like there's no love like a mother's love. Mom always be there, and she played the role of what she needed to do. My mom had been my doctor, she done been my lawyer, she done been my friend, she done been my pastor, and all of
yeah.
that. So it's definitely cool to have that mother involvement, you know what I mean? But then it's like, when it comes to your father, like what type of man was your father, and like how did he impact your life?
My dad was super quiet. He didn't really say too much. Um, and growing up, he was in the household, but a lot of the functions that I went to growing up, basketball games, he wasn't able to attend because he was at work. I really didn't understand it until after I graduated high school. I got into the real world.
Mhm.
I kind of knew exactly what it is that he was doing, and I gained a lot more respect. But for sure, man, like that was the example of hard work. In order for you to be able to do these things, somebody has to make a sacrifice. And so my dad was, that example of a sacrifice.
Okay. All right.
Very, very soft spoken. He'll say hi, he'll say bye, keep walking. But yeah, just extremely, extremely hard worker.
Okay. So then, and then you said like you did some work, working with the youth for 15 years, and then you said in the corporate structure for 16 and a half years.
Yep.
So like as far as that, like what type of work have you done in both of those fields?
So working at UPS, I started off loading, unloading trucks. I worked my way up to management. So I was a shift supervisor. From there, after running the shift for a few years, I switched over to a dispatch supervisor. And so dispatch is pretty much setting up the routes for all the drivers throughout the area that you're over. So me, I was pretty much over all of Erie County. Erie County is a pretty big place. A lot of people don't realize, like going from Lake City all the way down to Corey. I mean, sometimes that could take hour and a half, hour. So Erie County is a big place, and there's a lot in between.
Mhm.
So I was responsible for anywhere from 45, 50 routes all the way up to during peak season, like 105, 110 routes, and setting those up for drivers throughout the county. So I learned a lot. I was responsible for a lot. The whole Erie County economy could tank if I didn't do what I was supposed to do in the morning.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I mean, a large part of the economy really relies on that package distribution throughout the region.
Right.
And so, if I didn't do what I was supposed to do, if I overslept, if I wasn't there, it could be some huge problems throughout the day for hospitals waiting for um, blood transfusion, blood. I mean, you name it.
Right.
So it was a lot. Businesses, in order for them to be able to operate, auto mechanics to be able to fix cars, they're waiting for parts. And so it was my responsibility every morning to make sure I was there and that I did the job and did it well.
Well, that's interesting. You never know how important some of them jobs are until you actually had a conversation about some of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yep.
So then you said you did that for 16 years, or you've been doing that for 16 years?
So I was in UPS for 16 and a half years total.
16. Okay.
Yeah. And I did that job for about my last 8 years at UPS. I was in
Okay.
dispatch.
And
So,
then the youth thing. Take me to the youth work.
so the youth work. So while I was at UPS, I loved the job that I was doing there, but I'm a musician. So I play the drums, I play piano, and I do music production. I can play bass guitar just a little bit, but music production, drums my main instrument. I can play piano as well.
Okay.
So I traveled growing up. When I was 14 years old, I started playing the drums. I started playing when I was like around middle school, played throughout high school. Through my church, we traveled throughout the state. So I would go to Philadelphia a lot. I would go to Harrisburg, Pittsburgh, and I would meet all kind of folks, man, throughout the time. And I met some musicians now who play for people like Meek Mill. They play for like Lady Gaga, some of the biggest artists in the world.
Wow.
And so I was never exposed to that in the city. But
Hmm.
fortunate for me, I was able to get out and see that when I was out in Philly. And so I always wanted to bring those experiences and those opportunities I had back here to the city. And so I started a music mentoring program 12 years ago called Life Through Music,
Okay.
where I mentor inner city youth, teach them how to play the instruments. It started here. I did it for probably about 7 or 8 years just here in Erie. Then we started a branch in Harrisburg. We were working with youth out there. And then about 6 years ago, my sister moved out to Asbury Park, New Jersey. They started an Inspire Life camp out in Jersey. And so we travel out there every summer and we do a week-long music camp out there.
Really?
Yep.
That's what's up, man. All this like what got you interested in music?
My mom made us go to church every week and I had to be involved. So I was on the usher board, sang in the choir. Anytime we had anything regarding youth, I grew up in Shiloh. For those who are familiar with Erie, down on 5th and Perry.
Okay.
And so I hated singing, still can't sing to this day. So my only way of getting out of it was to learn an instrument. And lucky for me, I had a best friend, Patrick, who was very interested in drums. He was the kid that would have pots and pans out in the living room playing on pots and pans. And so he kind of inspired all of us to start playing. And then there was a group of us, like 5 or 6, we started playing, the drums. Some started branching off, started playing the piano. Pat started playing the bass guitar, and then we developed a band.
Okay.
And
All
so
right.
that's kind of how that went.
So then so like the music, so through music, because I'm hearing from some of the stuff that you're saying, like just through you being creative and getting involved in music, you were able to see different parts of the world, introduce yourself to different people,
Yeah,
just get involved with different things.
yeah. Music totally changed my life. I never, and I'm still like this. I don't like, public speaking. I don't like any like things like that. I'm pretty reserved, quiet for the most part. Um, I like conversations, like settings like this, more
Hmm.
comfortable for me. I mean, I don't mind doing it if I have to, but just prefer not to not to
Right,
do it.
right.
But yeah, music was that thing, man. It was like kind of how I expressed myself and how I communicated. And luckily for me, man, I was able to build a lot of relationships along the way, and it opened up opportunities for me to travel across the eastern part of the country for all kinds of different events.
Wow.
Playing at weddings, playing at political events, church conventions. I mean, you name it. And throughout New York area, Philly, DC area, Detroit. I mean, been able to kind of get around a little bit playing in all these different areas.
So like now I got a question for you, right? Because I was curious to notice like How did you end up on Good Morning? It was Good Morning America, right?
Yep.
How did that happen, man? You gotta take me to how did you do that?
So
Or
in
how
large part, that was all really done in large part through the work of the YMCA. The YMCA on a national level was doing a nationwide search of youth programs across the country that were pretty unique.
mm-hmm.
So we were working with two partners. So I was handling the music portion of it. I was teaching the music. There was a video component where there was a video instructor teaching the video aspect, and then there was the Erie Philharmonic. And so these three groups got together, and I was kind of at the core of it. And we wanted to produce a song that the Philharmonic would play at one of their performances. But parallel to that, we had the video team that would be documenting the whole process. So from start to finish, me working with the students, actually coming up with the track the Philharmonic would play, the Philharmonic, they composing it and actually doing a lot of the arrangements for all the different sections. And then we did a big concert to over like 3,000 students throughout the Erie community. And it was all documented. And so when the Y did that huge push to try to find a unique program, and they chose our program. And so they
Right.
wanted to really highlight the music aspect of it. And so me, one of my students, Elijah Lyons, we flew out to New York City. We went, we had an on, matter of fact, I'll take you back a little bit. So the whole process was probably a 2-week period.
Okay.
Once they selected our program and our what we did, it was 2 weeks. So we did a week of calls. That following week, we booked a flight. We did some more calls, and then I flew out to New York City. Me and Elijah, his parents, my fiance at the time, she came. My brother, my sister, they drove up from Philly, and they came from Jersey, and got there in New York. Man, they kind of roll out the carpet. They got the limousine outside, like the big. Well, they don't really have limousines too much in New York City. They have the big government vehicles.
Uh-huh.
We get there to the airport. They have our name on the iPad. We get in the truck. They take us down to Times Square, and our hotel was right across the street from ABC Studios.
Mm-hmm.
And so got checked in. We got a chance to kind of hang out that day. The next morning, we had to go across the street at 5 a.m. So they gave us our own private dressing room. We went over the show and everything. Got a chance to meet some of the staff, some of the hosts and everything. So that was pretty cool. And we got a chance to just kind of see how that whole process works. And we did the interview. Elijah performed live. They gave him a $10,000 check because he wanted to go to school at a conservatory in New York City.
Okay.
They gave him a $10,000 check. He performed live, and so it was all just like pretty much a blur, man. Within a 2-week process, found out you're going to be featured. Didn't know if I was actually going to be going live or if they were going to do this type
Record.
style, do it virtually. They decided they wanted to bring us out, so they flew
Right.
us there. So that was cool. So that's how that process went, man. And
So like, what was that like for you though? When you like, oh man, I'm here because it sounded like you got the royal treatment. They rolling the carpets out, hopping in the cars.
it was cool, man. I'm not gonna lie, I was super nervous until I was flying over Manhattan, man, and it was just like a weight that got lifted off of me, and like I realized how important that moment was and what it meant for the city back home. It's like, man, you can't be nervous at this point.
Right.
You gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta represent. And so that weight kind of was lifted off of me when I landed, man, and so it was nervousness leading up the 2 weeks up until, but it was a
Uh-huh.
calm once I got there, and it was cool, man. They made me feel comfortable. Elijah was comfortable, and man, it was just an overall great experience.
Okay. And what's interesting, like, and what I like about when I'm hearing you explain this is like you keep saying we, you
Yeah,
know what I mean? We were doing this, we were doing that. I got the Philharmonic here, you know what I mean? So when it comes to you like accomplishing certain things in your life and getting this different levels in your life, like how important has support been for you in teamwork and collaboration?
and it's been extremely important. And just really quick, going back to just a good morning before I answer that question. Good morning, America. I struggled because they coach you and tell you what to say.
Okay.
They didn't really want me to highlight the other groups that were involved. And I made a decision to highlight those other groups that were involved. And I mentioned their names on air. I just thought it was important. It was a live interview, and I knew I wasn't ever going to get that chance, probably that chance and opportunity. But I knew how important they were.
Right.
The entire process. I wouldn't be there. Elijah wouldn't be there if they weren't involved. So it was extremely important that I recognized them.
Did you
Uh,
catch any heat for it?
nope. And everybody they loved it. So that was a huge blessing.
Okay. Okay.
But as far as support goes, man, it started off in the household. Like I said, I mentioned I grew up in Shiloh. I saw levels of support at an early age, and like I said, within the house, even when I was outside of the house, in church, people were always supportive of me, no matter what I did. I started off drawing at first. That's kind of where like a lot of the artistic stuff came from for me. Then it was basketball. People were extremely supportive when I played basketball throughout my years when I was at Roosevelt 3 years. And then when I graduated from East, I played 3 years basketball at East. And then musically, they've always been supportive. So for me, I think that has been the difference for me.
What do you mean when you say that? The difference?
It's been the reason why I've had levels of success, within my career and things that I've done is because I've had people that have always supported me and pushed me to continue to go on. Uh, because sometimes doing like the nonprofit work, anybody to tell you, especially if you start your own, there's no money involved in this nonprofit work. Um, but the support and the encouragement that you get is what you really feed off of, and the change that you see and that you're making a difference that you're making in people's lives is what drives that. It's not financial gain. It's all about like at that people development, and
Right.
that's been the biggest thing for me, man. And that's I think the reason why I've been able to navigate how I have both the corporate world, my professional career, is just because of relationships. Always wanting to treat people how I want to be treated, and understanding that and approaching every situation like that.
Okay.
There's no need for me to be in competition with anybody. That's probably the biggest thing within our community is we see all the competition and folks, feeling like they have to position themselves a certain way in order to be successful. But if you really about people development, bringing people along, those same folks and others will push you along, and push you further than you can by being like in a crab in the barrel mentality,
Right.
constantly trying to drag people down.
Right. Right. And then I also see like you got the media thing going on.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
what does that all consist of? Because I done seen you with cameras, I done seen you with drones, I done seen you with microphones. Like, take me down there a little bit. Like, what's that about? How did that get started, and what does that
Yeah.
consist of?
So this all came from nonprofit work. So when I started the nonprofit program 12 years ago, I didn't have the money to be paying people to do photography, to do video, to tell my story. I didn't. I wasn't able to like build websites. Wasn't able to pay people to do that stuff. So I had to learn all of that stuff on my own.
Right.
I learned how to build websites. I learned how to take pictures. I learned how to do video. And doing that throughout the years, being able to tell our story, really developed like a passion for that work, from doing, the nonprofit work, and developing those skills. I love storytelling. So doing weddings, to me, I approach it's like telling a story,
Mm-hmm.
capturing the essence of the day, the emotion of the day. So that's where my development and my love for photography and video came in. So the media company is called Cook Media.
Okay.
I do photography, I do video, do live sound. My wife is my partner in that company. And
Okay.
so anytime we do weddings, she right there with me. She's helping, she's posing folks, she's working the cameras. It's been, and even that aspect of it, not only developing the business and that, but also being able to work with my wife has been, extremely rewarding for me. And it's took us places that, already just being involved in the last 2 years, we never thought. We
Mm-hmm.
did a wedding in Florida back in May. So they flew us down to Key West. We
Wow.
shot the video, did photography, and then we got a chance to hang out in Miami for a couple days. In the wedding, the setting of the wedding was crazy because it wasn't like a typical like beach wedding. We drove, or not drove, we were on a boat. We went out miles in the middle of the ocean on a sandbar, and the wedding was out there in the middle of nowhere in the sandbar.
Oh wow.
And me, I being from Erie, like I didn't had no clue what a sandbar was. So I'm like, what is a sandbar? Pretty much it's like sand underneath the ocean that's shallow enough that you can stand in it,
Uh-huh.
and it's white sand.
Uh-huh.
You'll see like pretty much little islands throughout, the ocean where they have these
Wow.
sandbars. So they got married on the sandbar.
And you got paid to go out there and experience something like that.
We got paid to do it. Had a little bit extra to kind of hang out, chill, and just that whole experience, man, was just it was great. So yeah, that's the media company, man.
Okay. And then like okay, so then slowing down because I was gonna get to this, but you threw it out there again when you said your fiance and then you said, my wife. So
Yeah.
like when you talk about that, like tell me a little bit about that. Like as far as like the support, like how important is the support of your wife? Like what role does she play in the development as you continuing to like develop into a better man in which you already are?
It's extremely important to have a partner that supports you and that has your back is extremely important. I can't do a lot of the work that I do in the community without her and her support, her man in the house. Between us, we have 5 kids.
Okay.
A daughter, Naraya, she's 4, um, 7-year old, 10-year old, 15 or 16 and 17-year old.
Okay.
So that doesn't happen like without her help and vice
Right.
versa. It's important for me to be a support to her. She's an amazing woman in her own right, licensed social worker, uh,
Okay.
but minister of the gospel, like everything.
Okay.
He has been definitely a great help to me, and we've been a help to each other. And the partnership that we have has been important for a lot of reasons, just with inside the household, for our kids to be able to see what marriage looks like, what Black family and Black love looks like, but also outside of the house. We know that we're an example for a lot of people, outside of the house. So that's important to us. Uh,
Okay.
so yeah, just
So when
go ahead.
when you say like the kids, as far as like your children seeing, excuse me, your children for seeing like when you say that black love, like
Yeah,
expand on that a little bit for me. I'm not married, you know what I mean? So you
yeah,
might be able to enlighten me and educate me on something. What does that mean?
yeah. Just to see like how life, how teamwork, like we are communal people at the core of us. God intended us to be in company with one another, and to be able to see it in a household that you have two folks at the core of it that have each other's back, that have a common goal and purpose to make sure the household is healthy, make sure that everybody has um, opportunities to succeed, that they're given the best chance, that they have an example of what success looks like. That's really important. It has to start in the house. And then we talk about community development. It starts in the house. From the house, it goes to the neighborhood. From the neighborhood, it goes to the city, to the state, and then to the nation. And
Right.
that household is so important. So that's really at the core of everything. And we have to make sure our house is tight. And then, like I said, to be that example for others.
Right, right. I love it. So now, like, I want to ask you, like, because every time it's time for something going on, I see you suited and booted when it's time for like politician time and stuff like that. Like, so you heavy into politics, correct?
Yeah, not really. You can yes and no.
Yes and no. What's
Yes
what's
and
what
no.
sparked the interest? First of all, elaborate on that. But I want to know what sparked the interest in politics, and then what do you mean when you say yes and no?
So I think the reason why I say yes and no, I'm not a politician,
Right.
but I do know a lot of political politicians. I'll say that I know a lot of politicians, have relationships. I know the importance of politics. I love politics. I study it. I watch it. I know how it can affect lives. For me, I don't want to be a politician, but I understand how important it is and how important networks are in order to build um, success, to build wealth, to build community. So in order to do the things that I at the core of me, the betterment of people, I know politics is a part of that.
Okay.
And for me, building, I started to really see success within myself when I started to branch outside of my normal surroundings.
What do you
And
mean?
so growing up, I said I was heavy in church. So pretty much church was my network. I didn't know anybody outside of the church network. So I knew people at Shiloh, knew people at Great Calvary. I knew people at Community, all these different churches around the city. But outside of that, I didn't know too many folks. So one thing I'm glad, and I saw earlier that in yesterday and today you were at Erie Homecoming. So you got a chance to see, and you've been really starting to expand your network, how important networks are, and how not only from a relationship standpoint, but also to see, what else is possible, like to see the possibilities. You're limited to what you can see, what's in front of you. And if all you see is the crab in a barrel mentality, if all you see is um, dilapidated housing and all, like that's your base of knowledge.
Right.
So you can start to develop these relationships, really start to expand the way you think. That's what really makes the difference. So I understand how important these networks are, and I understand how important politics are. So that's why I stay close. I am a commissioner for Governor Wolf,
Okay.
commissioner for African American Affairs for
Okay.
Governor Tom Wolf. I know people from the leader of the House to candidates running to state representatives in Philadelphia and Harrisburg, city council members in Harrisburg. So I've developed that network of folks, and I know how important that is. So I know how important politics are. I'm not a politician, but I definitely keep it close.
So it's safe to say your name ring bells out here.
I don't know about that, but
Oh, come on, man. Listen, man, that's the common theme for everybody, man. And I'm again, like I said this last night, I said it the day before. It's just like when you talk to good people who do the type of work that you do, you know what I mean? And we put ourselves out there and we work so hard and we take steps in the right direction and we accomplish these things. When it's like time to acknowledge it, it's kind of like, yeah, it's a little, I'm doing a little something, you know what I mean? But when you think about all the stuff that you just said and all the things that you've been working on, and like even just you being able to understand the importance of coming out of your comfort zone, tapping into, because I know, like, growing up in the church and being in churches, it's certain things that it's like, okay, we don't do this or we don't do that, to where it's kind of difficult to kind of go outside of your comfort zone. But for you to be able to do that, and then like, good morning America, man. Like, really, you like, I do a little. Like, why be so modest about it, man? Like, so I mean, even switching gears, like, I'm gonna ask you that question because I ask everybody that question. Like I said, I've been interviewing a bunch of men who I feel like have been doing great things in the community, who I feel like are positive role models, who are mentors, who can be some strong leaders. But it seems like those people, people who do the type of work that we do, it's like we don't really take advantage of the recognition aspect of it, or even kind of, I mean, for lack of better words, both. Like, why do you think that is? Why do you think that the people who work so hard and have good and great intentions aren't as loud as people who will poison our world?
I don't know. It just really depends on. I think. I think one thing I've learned, I've gotten a lot of awards. I've gotten a lot of recognition over the years. If your heart is in the right place, that stuff comes. It comes with it. If you stay
Hmm.
consistent, you stay professional, you stay humble, all that stuff comes with the territory.
Right.
And like I'm proof of it. Somebody who grew up on the Lower East Side, who was super quiet growing up, still is like very reserved, laid back. Um, I have been recognized a lot over the years, uh,
Okay.
but that's not what the goal of what I'm doing is. Like the goal of it is to make people's lives better at the end of the day. And if that's the focus, if that's the goal, and people don't know me for being a speaker, like my brother is probably one of the best speakers that you will hear, not only from a ministerial standpoint, from ministry, but also just like from any type of like public speaking realm, like for encouragement, like he has a gift in that area.
Right. Right.
And, um, for
So
me,
let me ask you this though, right? Because I'm gonna give you an opportunity to kind of like see how you take this question. So if it was, let's say if it was three more people in the city of Erie who did everything and do the things that you do and think like you, like what would you think of those people?
uh, I mean, I think there's people that do the work, the same work that I do,
Specifically you.
specifically.
Specifically you. What would
Um,
you think of those people? If like, man, this guy here is, and everything that you just told me they told you, what would your thoughts be about this person?
uh, my thought would be hopefully, well, that's what's up. That'd be my thought. Like that's what's up. And there's guys maybe not doing specifically what I'm doing, but there's
Uh-huh.
a lot of guys doing some great work.
Right.
Like Brandon Wiley, Anthony Easterling, Antonio Howard. Some guys, Patrick Lyons, my brother Daryl Cook. I mean, there's so many guys in our age bracket that are doing
Right.
exceptional work and that are doing it across the spectrum. And,
Absolutely.
and even guys like yourself, like even on the real estate tip, like when I was at UPS working third shift, like I drowned myself pretty much every morning. I had like 4 hours to myself by myself. I would listen to financial literacy speakers all day at work, man, just trying to really to see what it is, like how they think, like how money works, like all of that. And I understood how important. I started to get a understanding how important credit is, and and building financial literacy and building wealth as opposed to being rich. So all of these things started to become extremely important to me.
Hmm.
And I see the work that you're doing, even on the real estate tip, how important that is for our community, that our folks haven't really got the memo on that, and they
Right.
don't really, understand how powerful, having good credit can be and having your own house could be. And people with bad credit through a lifetime pay sometimes $400,000 in interest fees alone over a course of a lifetime. So just like building all that type of stuff up. So that's why the work that you're doing is extremely important. So even like guys like yourself is lumped into that. We don't see guys with big beers and hats on, out here selling, and that's great to see.
Right.
So for me, and that's why it's important. Like sometimes you'll see me in a suit, and I thought about putting on a jacket. I'm like, man, let me go on here. Sometimes you see me in a straight brim and a hoodie.
Right.
So it's important that people see me across the spectrum because I can blend in pretty much any environment.
Absolutely, I agree with that. I agree with that. Like, and yeah, like I'm glad that you said some of those things because a lot of the stuff that you like, those people that you named, like it seems like we only know what we do as far as like us who are involved in that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And then it's like it's an unfortunate situation, but there are people in our neighborhood in our community who are very ignorant to this, to the things that we do, to the things that we've accomplished, to like the knowledge that we've obtained, and it's like we hold it all. You know
yeah,
what I mean? So that's why I be asking questions and then be having different people like asking that question as far as like being more vocal about some of the things that you do. And I understand some people like, I don't like being on the spotlight or I'm a modest person and through my hard work and we give all the credit to all of these other people. But I feel like it's gonna be good. It'll be a great thing if we kind of start like, for instance, the thing you said, you got a lot of recognition, a lot of acknowledgement. And we know the way social media works and everything is trending to where some kids might, and I know you've done your work with the kids, but even some grown men might look at you like, yo, I didn't even know this dude had all this going on. I'm about to reach out to him. You know what I mean? So that's why I think it's important for us as men to kind of acknowledge one another and then for us to not be so humble. Practice humility, yeah, but when it comes to being humble, that's not really a thing of mine because I feel like, sometimes you get stepped over, you get walked over, and I know, and then with you being like, being coming from church, like the devil gonna work twice as hard. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
everything that you're doing and everything that you promote and all the positive stuff that you're doing, you know what I mean? And everybody else that I've interviewed, like these are the things that we need to be loud about. You know what I mean? We need to start talking
yeah,
more about because you can scroll through the timeline and you can see somebody talking bad about this person, bad about that person. But it's like, where are the good people at? And I know where they are, you
yeah,
know where they are, and everybody you just named. But then what about the struggling man? Like, So what's your thoughts on that as far as like how do we help this struggling man get more like, I mean, us? Let's just say that. How do we help the struggling man get more like us?
It is. It's two things. Like, first of all, um, being an example. I think probably one of the most powerful things that I had when I was at the Y, and why there was a lot of people, that a lot of the youth that respected me, was because of the example that I was. They've never really seen a young black man in a position of power like that, who could hire, who could fire, but also had influence in the community as well, outside of those walls. And
Mm-hmm.
he was respected outside of that by their parents, and by their teachers. So the example part of it, man, is number one. Um, and then also, like, making sure that we're sharing this knowledge. Um, I'm an open book. Like, I don't mind sharing anything, as far as like some of my future plans. Like, some
Right.
people get so guarded, like, man, I can't tell you what I'm about to do. Like, like, say it. I mean,
Right.
tell people what you're gonna do, execute it, number one. But then if they try to do it, I mean, just, you have to look at it as like, even if you look at it as competition, it's healthy competition.
Right.
I've always been a competitive person at the core. And like, yeah, there's a lot of humbleness to me, but there's a lot of confidence in me as well.
Okay. Okay.
And so I'm very confident, if I go out and put my name on something, I'm confident that I can execute. And that's the reason why I can feel the way I feel in rooms with the attorney general, the auditor general, with the governor, because I have a level of confidence, and they sense that. So that's extremely important too.
Mm. I love that, man. You said like my confidence radiates and come. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. That's how I like to hear. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
get to going like that. But then, okay, so then on the flip side, like we have some guys who don't have that confidence and they
Yeah.
think that they
Yeah.
do. We have some guys who think like being tough is the only way to be confident. Like, and I feel like that kind of like affects or infects some of the things that we have going on, or some of the things that we as people are trying to do. So what would you say, like, as far as, again, like, I'm gonna try to reword it a little bit, like, how do we get everybody to hop on board? Like, come on, because I know that's what we all want to do anyway, at some in some capacity or another. Like, and I think like we're lacking in strong men in our community. Not saying that there aren't any, because there are some. You've named some, I can name some, I'll have some interviewing, but overall, like, I feel like we're lacking strong men. And when I say men, I don't just mean man because you're the age of and you're the gender of, but actually certain principles of what we like to consider to be man. Like,
Yeah.
how do we get them to step that up?
The question is, I think, like, who's your audience? Like, if you want to convey that you're a tough man, like, are you trying to be tough for the streets? Like, who are you trying to be tough for? And like, what is the end goal of being tough? Like, for me, like, I've always tried to appeal to a very broad audience.
Okay.
That my goal has always been to empower and better people. At the end of it, like, at the core of it, that's the thing. But for me, I've been able to do it through the tools and the talents that I have. The tools and talents I have is music,
Mm-hmm.
photography, media. Um, Now it's connections that I have. Like, anytime that I can bring somebody to a room that I'm in, I'll do that. Introductions, that's extremely important. Like, I
Okay.
know a lot of people now at this point, so I can introduce you to some folks. And I know for me how extremely important that is. Like, a good friend of mine, Selena King, who is over the Black Caucus here, the Erie Black Caucus.
Uh-huh.
She's introduced me to a lot of folks, over the years. And she's really the one that kind of pushed me to get out of that normal comfort zone. Like, no, you got to come to this event. Like, it's this other event over here. Like, all right,
Right.
cool. So I go to that event, I meet like 4 or 5 new people. Then they invite me somewhere else. So now I'm starting to build this network, and they know me strictly by what I do.
Okay.
Um, I mean, they know I'm a music guy. They know I work hard. They know I love my family. And that's where I keep those relationships. So
So then
yeah,
let me ask you this though, right? Okay, so now, like, and I don't know how to actually pose the question, so I'm just gonna ask it. You know what I mean? Like, so
yeah.
was there ever a time in your life, because you said, like, you grew up in the church, you was part of the church community, but then you say like where you lived on the Lower East Side and pretty, you go to East and stuff like. Was there ever a point in time where you kind of like ashamed of not being involved in some of the knucklehead stuff that some of your peers were?
No, and I actually got involved in some of that. Like when I was
Yeah.
in school, yeah, I was had a little point where I was tripping in high school.
Okay.
But I was able to um, kind of get out of it pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that I was embarrassed about for a long time, a lot of people didn't know it about me, is that I actually graduated high school 2 years late. I
Okay.
was
Really?
20 years old when I graduated high school.
Yeah.
Like it's because I fooled around in school, got held back to first grade, got held back second time in fifth grade. And so, I fooled around a lot when I was in school. Took it more serious like the older I got.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I graduated high school with my younger sister.
Okay.
And like I said, I was embarrassed about it for a long time. But now I know how important that aspect of my story is to some folks, and even like the kids that I worked with, that you can get your act together and you can still get things, back on track. And even like everything that I've mentioned, the positions that I've had to this point, I've done all of this. I don't have a college degree.
Okay.
I have some college. I went to Edinburgh for a year. Ended up having my son that first year when I was in school. Ended up leaving school, got into the workforce, got a job at UPS, and kind of worked my way up through there. And then everything else has kind of been what I've been able to do in the community and the relationships that I've built. I've been able to have these other opportunities. And even now, I'm the director of operations and logistics for the Erie Downtown Development Corporation. And so, all of the development that you're seeing downtown, like the food hall, where the old McDonald's was, that
Mm-hmm.
building being built, the parking garage behind it. I'm the director of operations down there, and I help oversee $110 million investment into the core downtown. And that's leading um, in the nation, really, as far as like being an example of what can be done in underserved communities. And so I've been extremely blessed over the last, couple years. But it goes back to building relationships, staying humble, staying professional, staying confident. And because of those things, man, I've been able to do some things that I never thought that I would be able to do.
Man, listen, I gotta repeat some of that because it's very interesting to hear you say that. When you say, all right, I graduated 2 years late. I graduated at the age of 20. Then you make sure like I didn't graduate college. You know what I mean? So dropped out of college,
Yep.
as what they would say. You had a kid, and then you pretty much like work your way from back from the ground up to where you got to the point
Yep.
to where like you making big decisions and major decisions that's like going to be lasting around. When you talk about something like that, like they didn't knock that down and put something up to knock it down in 5 years. So your stamp gonna be on that forever. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
that's good stuff, man, for real. Like that's some great stuff to know, great stuff to hear. And like, wow, like, I didn't even know. Like a lot of this stuff that you telling me is all like, I'm like, wow, really? What? Like it's impressive. It's impressive. You keep, you dropping more things on me. But then I want to ask you about. I lost my train of thought that fast. You know what I mean? You were talking about, the politics and meeting different people, and
Yeah.
so it sounds to me like you've never been afraid to just be yourself.
Never, never.
Why?
Because I'm comfortable and confident in my skin, and there's no ulterior motives. There's nothing on the back end that's negative. Like what you see with me is what you get, and um, I really feel, and it's worked in my favor.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to be, transparent about who I am and really convey that, like how I talk, how I interact with anybody. It doesn't matter if it's somebody that's homeless downtown or if it's the governor of Pennsylvania. Like my interaction is the same. And that's really, I mean, that's kind of been it, man. That's it.
Okay. I mean, listen, it's crazy. I'm having all these conversations with all these different people, and I'm hearing different things, and it's a lot of it's just kind of tying together, especially with you, because like I remember growing up, like going to the Trinity Center and seeing that there, seeing y'all at the Trinity Center and stuff like that. You and your brothers and your cousins and friends, y'all was like pretty tight, and and then here, like you saying your father was working these hours and mom was holding stuff down. Like
Yeah.
my question to you is like, how important was it, do you believe, for you to have like other male role models in your life, or just other males around you to kind of like, how did that help mold you, and like how important was that for you in your development growing up?
It was important because even like pastors that were like Pastor Mock, um, Pastor Baker, like these guys have been, and now that I'm on this side and I'm older, um, I understand like how hard community development work is when you're trying to push a community and you're fighting for everything that you get, and how much of the family aspect that they've missed over the years because they were at different meetings, city council meetings, and fighting on the behalf of so many different people. I have a different perspective of it now, being on this side of it, and so I have an even greater respect, and I understand even greater the responsibility that I have because they did it. And even like Mr. Gary Horton, somebody else who I consider a mentor, and somebody who, unless you're in some of these rooms and you hear the conversations and you spend time and you hear him speak, you understand why he does things a certain way, and how much he's poured into this community for fairness, across the board. And so it's like people like that who I've known over the years, who I've had interactions with over the years, who now I understand how important their roles were, and just me seeing them, on TV, and not really understanding, not really paying attention what they were saying, maybe at age 14, but at age 27, it's like, okay, now I understand. Like the whole neighborhood I grew up in, the credit score is like probably 500 and below, and like the economics of the neighborhood, and you see the houses and you see the sharp lines, or if you go into a different zip code, you can see how much better like some of the properties and some of the houses are. And so like just understanding like a lot of these issues now at this age, I just have a greater respect about what they've done, throughout my life. And even now, um, they consider me a peer.
Uh-huh.
Consider myself a peer, to those guys. They're giants out here, and I learn whenever I can. And even Mr. Fred Rush, got a chance to have lunch with him recently, and just to be able to hear, some of the stories he told me about old Tulio days, with Mayor Tulio, and trying to understand history to make sure that we don't fall into the same traps that we did, back then, moving forward. So
Right. That is interesting too, ain't it? Like we get older, because like, so a lot of the people you named, I remember watching growing up and
yeah,
seeing some of the work that they was doing and some of the advocacy that they was doing, and I see Mr. Horton now and I'm still calling him Mr. Horton, or I see Andre like, what's going on, Mr. Horton? And he like, no, you brother now, like we brothers now, you know what I mean? I always like you said, you a giant, because I remember some of these dudes like sticking their necks out there, you know what I mean? And just advocating for us. And like I was involved in a bunch of different community centers. So I seen some things, you know what I mean? Going on different trips with the Trinity Center, with the JFK, going camping, from the Erie One and different things like that. So yeah, it's crazy like to hear that kind of stuff. But so then let me ask you this: when it comes to like, because it sounded to me like you wearing many hats. You said four. I've lost count when you was doing the ages. You got 4 or 5 children together with you and your wife.
so we have one together,
I
and
mean, like all together. Let me that's your
have
family.
five.
Okay, so you got 5 children. You you
Yeah.
you you going to church. You're doing the community advocacy work. You got the media going on. Then when the politicians is coming in here, you doing all of that. Like, does that get stressful for you?
No, it doesn't, man. It's number one, it's rewarding for me. I mean, I love to do the work. Of course, like I wouldn't do it if I didn't love it. But I understand the weight, and the responsibility that I've been given, because there's not a lot of us that get into those rooms, and
Hmm.
to be able to have those conversations, um, and to be able to speak positively on the behalf of Erie, and specifically sometimes the Black community in Erie, man. I know it's a great responsibility. So for me, it's just something that God has placed on my plate. And I do it, man. And I do it with joy. And I'll continue to do it. I mean, I love this community. I heard Anthony when you guys were talking, a couple days ago, And you hear a lot of the things like people say dreary eerie. He wasn't saying that. He was just saying that you hear that
Right.
always like echoed. And first of all, we live here. We live in this community. So you should always have pride in where you live. And we shouldn't be echoing things that diminish where we all live.
Right.
We have to make this place better, and it's up to us to make it better. So that's number one, and we have to make sure that we're doing our part to make it a better community. We have kids here, like I have kids that are growing up in the community, that are going to the schools in this community, and at the end of it, I want them to be able to make a decision of like, do I want to stay in Erie or do I
Mm-hmm.
want to leave? And them actually that being a tough choice because there's opportunities here for them to stay. But if you want to go, you can. But there's plenty of opportunities here, and that's really the goal of everything that I'm trying to do is to make sure this is a better place for a lot of people, not just my immediate family, but a lot of people, and for us to be able to have a place that we have pride in again. I mean, you hear people when they say they're from Brooklyn, it's a sense of pride that comes behind it. I'm from Brooklyn, or
Right.
they say sometimes like parts of Philly. I'm from North Philly. Like it's a pride that comes from being from these different areas. When I say I'm from the Lower East Side, like there's a pride that comes with that. I know
Right.
there's work to be done on the Lower East Side, but I'm proud of where I came from, and I want to make sure that the next generation can be even more proud because things are better because of the decisions and things that I helped to implement and some other folks around.
Okay.
And then they carry that torch on. So then they start to build.
Okay. Like that's what's up, man. I love hearing all that. It was I mean, like I majored in sociology with a minor in social work, graduated from Clarion University. So a lot of the stuff that you're talking about is a lot of things that I've studied, a lot of the things that I do. I've grew up in those type of environments. And I've literally like got to the point to where I've given so much of myself to where like I got tired and like and I'm everybody knows I'm a huge advocate for mental health and I always ask this question because it sounds to me like you taking care of everybody else. So like when it comes to you and addressing mental health or you taking care of yourself, like what's your thoughts on the subject of mental health and how do you maintain, how do you cope, how do you address, how do you deal, if anything?
For me, if I'm not healthy, then like people around me can't be healthy.
Right.
Well, it's important that I take time for me, music, um, even like what I do visually, like through video, through pictures. That's a way of like me like communicating. That's a release for me. The time that I spend with my wife, like we travel, we go on dates, things that I try to do with the kids. Like that's kind of those things that kind of help like keep me
Okay.
balanced. And the balance is extremely important because if I'm uptight and I'm not in a healthy space, I can't advocate from a healthy perspective in these other environments that I'm in and that I'm navigating. But like I said, a lot of it is I know and I understand the responsibility that I have, that I've been given for this period of time, and I'm gonna make the most of it while I can because these positions and these relationships they don't last forever. So you
Right.
have to maximize those. And I'm building right now. I'm working hard right now, extremely hard. But by the time I'm ready to retire, believe me, I'll be able to sail off into the sunset
Right.
and
Right.
not have to work because I've seen that so many times. And our grandparents working until pretty much the day that they die,
Mm-hmm.
they weren't able to save and they didn't plan properly. And
Right.
so for me, I'm doing everything. I'm condensing everything while I can, while I have the energy, while I have the influence to do these things. And like I said, my wife has been extremely helpful. My parents, and there's so many people around me that have really helped because I can't do it alone.
Right.
But that's kind of my approach, my perspective, and that's how I deal with it.
That's what's up, man. It sounded to me like you got a lot of I got a lot of resources, you know what I mean? You got a lot of different things going on, especially with you being involved in art, you know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah,
I asked that question because when you pose that question, a lot of people really don't like understand like the subject of it, and we automatically go to crazy and stuff like that. But
yeah,
like everything that you said, like you find the time for the family, you find the time for the wife, you traveling, you're getting out of here, you're seeing different things. I mean, you sound like you're pretty sharp, you know what I mean? So I'm pretty sure you're reading or you've read something. And then something that stood out to me that you said, and I'm learning this as I'm doing more networking, is when somebody be like, we should do lunch, like that might be one of the greatest conversations. That's like one of the that's better in that, like you would think about it before I got to the point to where I'm at now. I would rather somebody, tell me, let's go hang out, let's go have a party, let's go have some drinks, let's go have drinks. But
Yeah.
now, as I'm developing more into a man, I'm getting myself more involved in professional affairs. When somebody like, we should do lunch one day, that invitation, right? And I'm saying that because I want more people to like understand how important that phrase means when, especially depending on the person who says, like, oh yeah, we should get together, we should have lunch, or we should have coffee. Because like I've been part of some conversations and heard some conversations where some crazy deals get striked over a sandwich in a glass of water, for real.
Yeah.
So like that's big to hear you say that, man. And so you know what I mean? You got everything going on. You got all everything put together. So my question to you is, and I know you threw some names out there. I'm not going to ask you for the names, but when it comes to like you having like you accountability, I guess, like what are some of the type of people, some of the type of men that you surround yourself with that kind of keeps you on the up and ups? Some of the characteristics.
Yeah. So somebody who's like-minded, who's like-hearted, is important for me. My brother pretty much is like, out of the men, my brother probably is my best friend, and
Okay.
talk, every day, numerous times a day. So my brother, of course, Patrick Lyons. I mean, Patrick. Um, I mean, there's guys who I've grown up with that have been with me. Jonathan Baker, um, that have grown up, I've known my entire life, and have never changed, have been the same, and who I've had like a level of trust that you just can't. It's hard to find. And so those are the folks that are constantly helping to sharpen who I can bounce ideas off of. And I mean, there's others, but I keep like
Right.
a very very small circle. And there's everybody can't have access to all of me. So
Right. Right.
there's layers of access that people can have. And um, so I try my best to make sure that I'm navigating that. And like I said, at the end of it, just try to treat people, how you want to be treated, and that's kind of what I live by.
Right. So like amongst those group of friends that you talking about, or those group of people that you name, like, and I'm asking this question because I want this to be highlighted and I want us to be able to do these things. Like, what type of conversations are you guys having? What type of stuff are you and your circle talking about? The people that get those pieces of you that you're willing to share.
So mainly, just about life, a lot of life stuff, some spiritual stuff, some economic development, um, big goals. 10 years out, those type of plans. Constantly strategizing, refining. Our plans, our strategies now. Um, Programming, even like the details of programming. Like I was talking about my brother earlier, I'm thinking about doing a Christmas concert, and the city hasn't had a real good like gospel Christmas concert in
Okay.
years because of COVID. And so I was thinking about doing one at the high school, at one of the high schools, either East or Strong Vincent. And then I was like, well, Israel did a real nice, like intimate Christmas concert in the house,
Mm-hmm.
and he invited like 15, 20 people, and it was a very high level production, and that was done extremely well. So like just kind of details like that, like, yo, what do you think, man? Should I do a Christmas concert in the auditorium, invite a ton of people, or should I do a more intimate one, just invite a few people and just stream it live, so it can be like a real nice high end intimate Christmas concert done
Right.
downtown that the city has never seen before. So just like things like that, man. Just constantly thinking about new ways to reach out to people, new ways to develop people, and from the big picture ideas of it to the details to funding. I mean, we talk about like everything.
Right, right. And like again, that all sounds like good stuff, good conversations to have. And like I've been telling everybody, that's why I'm doing this podcast. And I want to get some of those other gentlemen on here because I want people to see us on more of a public level having conversations about stuff like that. You know what I mean? You talk about progress, we talk about financial literacy, you talk about credit, spirituality, relationships, and stuff like that. Like you and I have been sitting here for a good hour, and I don't that we didn't say anything about any negativity. We just going back and forth, just having a good conversation. And I think that'll benefit a lot of people. And
Yeah.
like, how important do you think that that would be? Like, let's say, for instance, if we were to do like a conference or a males conference or an event to where when you came in there, these are the type of conversation that you would have. Like, how impactful do you think that that would be for some of the men in this community if we did this on a more large level and everybody was invited? You know, the door was open to anybody who considered themselves to be a man.
I think it'd be extremely impactful. People learn and do better in groups. Like I said, we're communal folks. And the reason why I had levels of success in my music program is because I wasn't doing just one-on-one lessons with students. Part of the secret sauce, you can say, of what I was doing is I was doing group lessons. And yeah, I was encouraging the kids to do certain things and become better musicians. But even more impactful, they were pushing each other. And I learned that growing up with the group of guys I grew up with. When we started playing the drums, like it was never like a negative competition, but it was always like healthy competition. Like I would be able to do a double on the bass drum with my foot. Jared to come back next week, he doing triples. So that means I got to go back. I got to work on quad. So we pushing each other.
Right.
And so that's what that music program did. The kids pushed each other. And then I pushed them. And then they started pushing each other. And so if we can get together as men and we can push each other in ways to better ourselves, especially from a economic perspective. And I don't know if you follow John Hope Bryant.
No, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, you gotta catch up with John Hope Bryant, man. He's really like heavy in the whole financial literacy realm right now.
Okay.
And he was saying that the world doesn't see white and black; the world sees green, which is money. And then he was saying too, another one of his he's like, the fight of our times isn't civil rights anymore, it's silver rights.
Mm-hmm.
And so like having those conversations, because like once everybody is on the same field economically,
Right.
changes the ball game. Then you have the money to pay for the education, the better education maybe that you want. If you want private education, you have options at that point.
Right.
When I was working at the Y, I remember like probably one of the things that was like really the most difficult for me to deal with. I can count on two hands, and I worked with probably like 600 kids, over 600 kids at the Y. I can count on both hands the number of kids who I know of that went to college and that finished. And a large part of it was that their parents had no idea what FAFSA was. They couldn't get through like a college application, like didn't even know where to start.
Right.
And so to be able to have, our folks to be more aware of the financial aspect of of like this their surroundings in financial literacy and education would change the dynamics in so many communities across the country. And at that point, once you have the knowledge, like redlining isn't a factor anymore.
Right.
All of these different barriers aren't factors anymore because there's ways to get around it. You can live on the Lower East Side and have a great household, but you got to have the right mindset. You have to understand like a good credit score pretty much will determine if you're paying $800 a month in rent in a neighborhood on the Lower East Side, or you paying like $350 for a mortgage on the Lower East Side. And if you're paying 18% interest on a car, or if you're paying, 4 or 5% interest on a car note, and
Right.
the car note isn't, instead of it being like 400 every 2 weeks at Byrider, it might be like 250, 300 from a credit union
Right.
a month. And then your insurance is lower because you got good credit.
Right.
So it's like just that whole education piece is extremely important. So if we can start to have those conversations and really start to put that information into our families, that's going to change the dynamic of everything.
I agree with you too. And what's interesting about what you said is because of everything that you said made all the sense in the world to me. And it's unfortunate that there are certain people who where everything that you said would be Chinese to them, and they
Yeah,
would never say, "What is he talking about?" or "How can he do that?" And that's the barrier that I'm trying to break. And that's why I
yeah,
asked you that. And then based on some of the things that you've said throughout this interview and some of the people that you've met and the accomplishments that you've made, and like I said, your name ringing bells around here. Like I honestly feel like you would be like you would be able to assist in us putting together some type of conference or some type of us getting a spot and getting a space to where we can literally do everything that you just mentioned in that little tidbit, like as far as getting some men on board and we can work on like the etiquettes because I was talking to one of my brothers today and he's like, listen, it's never too late. It's never too late to learn. You're never too old.
yeah,
So if we can kind of like build, even we talk about manners, we talk about etiquettes, we talk about budgeting, like you said, financial literacy, resume writing, just things of that nature. I feel like that would benefit a lot of us. And I think like you would be one of the perfect people to do it because what I don't want to happen is I don't want this thing to just be, me calling people on here and we had this conversation, then it just dies here. Like I want everybody who gets the interview, has the opportunity to be interviewed. I want us to all link up. I want us to all get together, throw ideas, bounce ideas around because I've had people on here that I can learn from. I've had people on here I can teach. I've had people on here who can teach other people, who can learn from other people.
yeah.
And like as I'm doing this, and then as I'm going out in the community, like when I went to the Erie homecoming, and I go to different events, like people are recognizing what we are doing. You know what I mean? And I'm not taking any of the credit for this, like other than just asking the questions because people are really recognizing what we are doing. More people want to become a part of it. More people are like, yo, that guy you had on the other day, man, he was pretty sharp. People are reaching out to different people now. And then even like after having these conversations, people are feeling good. So it's good that you got that mindset and it's good that you saying everything that you said because there are a lot of men who don't think like us who need to get involved with us and we need to start like reaching out to them. You know what I mean? And that's what I mean when I say like as far as us being more boisterous or more vocal about some of the things that we're doing, because a lot of people might not know some of the things that you do. And like man, from the resume, from everything that you said to me, and I love the fact that you said you was confident. I'm still gonna give you flowers, but it seemed like you don't need them like the majority of the people do. You know what I mean? Like you're an amazing dude when you talk about being in the music and being in the church and not being afraid to be who you are. Then the accolades, the things that you've been recognized for. Then like we can't forget the Good Morning America thing, and then even just the way that you present yourself with the we, like you saying we did this and we did that, understanding like the importance of family, understanding the importance of like your children, seeing the black love, being able to acknowledge your wife and say like the role she plays, acknowledging your mother, your father, like your whole team. Like
Yeah.
honestly, bro, like you the total package of man when it comes to man. Like to me, in my opinion, man, like you the total package of man. And
Appreciate that.
especially when you throw the confidence part on it, when you say like I'm not afraid to be confident. I'm not afraid to be confident. I know I go in a room and I'm gonna treat everybody the same, and you know what I mean. Like, and then like your name does ring bells out here, bro. Like you ain't got to take it or not, but you're like Corey Cook. Oh, you talking about dude who be doing the dude who's on Good Morning America, or dude who be with the politicians, or dude who be doing the pictures and stuff like that in the videos, and you being flown out to got flued out. They flew him out to Key West to go to the wedding and stuff like that, man. So like you definitely need to be taking that stuff in. You need to be embracing that. And I think that like we come from different walks of life, but we cross paths on different times in different
Yeah.
categories. But I definitely believe that it's some people from like people that I grew up with, people that I be around who could learn a lot from you and don't know who you are, and they will probably take it better coming from you than they would from me, just because I mean, unfortunately, the way we work, coming from a stranger, I would rather just like they know me all my life. So it's like, man, you ain't finna tell me something and we've been hanging together. But if I have somebody that looks like them, come to them and say, listen, no, this is what he was talking about. I did it. This is how you do it. I think people be more open to that. And that's what I want to do. I want to cross, you know what I mean? I want us to cross our communities, to cross our circles and kind of intertwine some of the people that we dealing with. Because
No
from
doubt.
what you're saying, like you be around a bunch of good people, and for I be around a bunch of good people. So imagine if like our five turn to 10 and we honest people with a
Yeah.
high level of integrity, with good intentions, and we pure and we genuine, like people gonna be afraid of us. And especially with like the stuff you got going on, the movement you got going on, the like the impact that you have around here. Like I said, like you man, you listen, man. You're an amazing man, if you ask me, man. And we definitely need to highlight you. We need to be talking about you because people are going to be talking to the people who aren't doing anything and they don't get all the praise. So I like to come on here, and have different conversations with different men. I feel like it's needed. It's
Yeah.
important. People, we need to know who's who. I need to know who I can feel comfortable talking to. I want other people to see that and know that. So like, man, thank you for coming on here. Thank you for giving what you gave to us. Like, and I don't want you to think that I'm cutting you off or anything, but I don't want it to run dry. And I also don't want you to be like, man, he talked my head off. I ain't never going back. And
No,
another thing, I also want people to look for you too. You know what I mean? So we give a little bits and pieces, but I mean, you got anything that you do, anything that we forgot, we left out, anything that you feel like was of importance that we needed to touch on?
no, and this is for you, man. Just be encouraged, man. Just continue to do what you do. This is extremely important for this community to have people like yourself that want to highlight the positive. The only reason why I got into the rooms that I'm in now is because somebody saw the positive work that I was doing and they recognized me for it. And they recognized me for it in front of people who had influence. And so, like, that's been the key in a lot of ways to how I've been able to navigate and get in certain rooms. So be encouraged, keep doing what you're doing. It's extremely important for this community. Be consistent. You know what I'm saying? Like when I started Life Through Music 12 years ago, I remember going into some of those auditoriums and performances. It might be 12, 13 people in a room, but that didn't really bother me. Like I knew it was going to be, some time to really build the momentum.
Okay.
And here I am years later, and I've accomplished a lot of those things. If I would have just stayed at UPS, try to work my way up through that, I would have never been doing the things that I've been doing
Wow.
all these years. It's because I stepped out, started doing the music program. I stayed consistent. My heart was in the right place. It was all about positivity, and I've been extremely blessed for it. And so that's just be encouraged because you doing this like the same is already starting to happen, but it will continue.
Yeah, man, it's definitely building, man. It's definitely building. I'm excited, but it's kind of overwhelming for we people walking up to me like, "Yo, I love what you're doing. Good job, congratulations." And I'm like, "Man, listen." And what I'm learning too is, and I was having a conversation with my cousin earlier, is like how important service is, how important it is to serve. Because here's the thing: when people say congratulations, I see you doing a good job. All I'm doing is helping people. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like even with real estate, that's helping. With the work that I do, I'm a drug and alcohol counselor. That's helping people. People reach out to me, hey, I need some information on this. I'm helping people. Me highlighting other men and giving flowers, like it's me helping people. And like people are acknowledging that, and people so like service, like being a servant is I think like being a servant leader is great. People acknowledge it, people recognize it, and like
No
I
doubt.
want people to all understand the importance of community service, understand the importance of helping your fellow man, and how it comes back to you when you do it, man. So
And the
like,
last thing I'll say, man, is that what's important too right now, you doing that, and that's been a common thread through this whole conversation. People, the betterment of people, but you're doing it, and it's not about making a buck off of doing it.
right.
You're doing it because the love and the passion is there, and that's the key.
Absolutely. This is definitely I'm definitely funding all of this by myself right now with all the everything that I got going on, the place that I go, the gas, the equipment, the channel, everything. So yeah, it's
Right.
definitely like when you do that community service, sometimes you give it all away before it start coming back. But I don't mind it because I know it's gonna come back and it's not all about the money. I know how to make money, you know what I mean? I just want to highlight people. We got to change it, man. We got to get it changed. So
No.
yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on here, and we need you to kind of like drop a plug on this, man, as far as like the media thing once again, because we have to end this. So I know people chiming back in. Let's get it in there.
Yeah. So the media company is Cook Media. Go to cook-media.com. The music program is called Life Through Music. It's lifeinpa.org is that website. So I run that music program. And then also you can catch me downtown, Director of Operations and Logistics for the Erie Downtown Development Corporation. Come see me at the food hall, the new grocery store downtown. We're going to have a lot of new development amenities downtown, cigar lounge, um, uh, virtual golf. I mean, all the new shops and boutiques when it's all said and done. 35 new businesses, 150 apartments, food hall, grocery store. So a ton downtown. So you can catch me either downtown, lifeinpa.org, or Corey at cook-media.com. .com.
Man, listen here, man. I pretty much just heard you say you can catch me anywhere because I'm taking over the city one
Uh,
building at a time. What you know what I mean? But no, that's what's up, man. Like it's good to hear all of that good stuff, man. I appreciate you coming on here, man. I'm proud of you for everything that you've done so far. Proud of everything that you're doing. Like I love your heart. I love everything that you said, especially when you're talking about the betterment of people. Like you were literally walking proof of doing what you want to do and being. And what's crazy is like I titled this "When You Believe in Yourself, You Can Do Anything" with Corey Cook, on the social experiment, and like just listening to what you say, like you believing in yourself and you're not being afraid of yourself and you having that support and having, you know what I mean? Like it's great, man. I appreciate you coming on here. I appreciate the conversation. For anybody who watched, you know what I mean? Make sure you look him up. Watch the episode again. His name is tagged on here if you need to find him for any of his services, man. But we've been running for an hour and 20 minutes. I mean, if that's all you got, I'm gonna let you go ahead out the lobby, let you continue on with the rest of your day. But I definitely want to stay in touch. And like
yes,
I
sir.
said, like I was telling everybody, like I got some things, I got some plans and some decisions that I need to make. And like you kind of touched on a lot of it at the end. So like I might be reaching out to you sooner than later to be like, hey, let's just sit, let's have some lunch or something. We can kind of throw some ideas
Sounds
around.
good.
So and I'm
Cool.
trying to get everybody together. So I appreciate you and I'm gonna be in contact with you, man. Thank you once again for coming on the show.
No doubt. Thank you for having me.
All right. All right, so there we have it. There you have it, everybody. That's Mr. Corey Cook, man. Listen, that like I did not know the resume was that strong, man, for real. And I'm gonna keep doing this. We will continue having these conversations. We will continue highlighting these men because what I'm learning is there's some good brothers in the city of Erie, Pennsylvania, and a lot of these brothers can help us go in the right direction. A lot of them can like guide us. Like you think about some of the things that he talk about when his family members and some of his friends and some of the support that he's had, and just not being afraid of himself and being who he is, working hard, dedication. Like we need more people like that. You know what I mean? And for anybody who is watching this show who's not a friend of his on Facebook, make sure you follow him on Facebook. Make sure you're looking at what he has going on and what he's doing because he's definitely somebody that you want to be involved with and somebody that you want to know. Again, I appreciate everybody for watching these episodes with me, watching these shows. Like we having a lot of fun doing this. We're building, we're growing, like we are getting a lot of recognition, fellas. So listen, man, we got to keep coming on. We got to keep having these conversations. We're gonna keep highlighting ourselves. We're gonna keep talking about the positive things that we are doing. Because what I am saying to you is like, and I'm only saying it because I go out by myself, but people are recognizing me from doing this. So hopefully every guest is being recognized, and hopefully more guests want to come on here and get some recognition because you deserve it, fellas. Like there are a lot of good men in the city of Erie who do great things, and we don't highlight ourselves enough to where sometimes we can find ourselves being left behind. So we're gonna gather together collectively. So then when we do make that movement and we get to marching and stepping, people are gonna say, okay, them is some of them fellows who was on the social experiment. And them is some of them guys who had that brunch. And those are some of the fellas. So when we come in the rooms and they see us, they feel us coming and they know how we coming, and it's all positivity. So, hey man, listen, make sure that y'all like the channel. Make sure that y'all talking about the channel to y'all friends, to y'all cousins, girlfriends, boyfriends. I don't you talk good about it, talk bad about it. I don't care how you talk, just talk about it. We need to get them subscriptions up. We need to get them likes up. We need to get them shares up because we are going to build something amazing with the social experiment. And it's going to start, it's starting here with the fellas. But listen, ladies, like there's nothing sexist about this. I definitely got a list of ladies who I plan on getting on here, having some interviews with, and having some great conversations. I just want to make sure I get all the guys on here, get the fellas they flowers and highlight some of these men. So then that way, when we get some of these women on here, we kind of can start collaborating, having different ideas and literally and really build some teams, build some connections, and build some relationships. So please, if you've been watching this show and you like, well, where the ladies at? I'm waiting for the ladies. We're gonna have some ladies on here too. There's also other things coming up for the ladies, but listen, we're gonna keep highlighting the fellas. We're gonna keep them talking. We're gonna keep acknowledging them. We're gonna keep building, fellas. I appreciate every single person who watches these shows. I get the feedback, text message, the phone calls, and like I'm working on every single thing that you all are telling me to do and asking me to do because I want it to be good. But in the meantime, this is a social experiment. We are signing off. I want everybody to have a good day, good night. It is Friday, so if you have any evening plans, make sure that you're safe. Make sure that you're responsible because we're gonna be back for more. I believe I have 2 guests tomorrow. I'm not 100% sure. I got to lock in with them, but just, be on the lookout. Y'all know I'll pop up on your timeline or in your notifications. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications so that way when we do go live, you get the alert. Like, share, talk about us, share us on your Facebook, brag about us, talk about your loved ones that's getting on here, brag about some of these fellas. But you all know I can go all night talking. So I'm gonna sign off here. I'm gonna push this end broadcast button. I'm gonna enjoy the rest of my day. Y'all take care. And like I learned this from Mr. Ron Paisley and Mr. Corey Coleman. I love y'all. I'm not afraid to love other people. I love y'all. Have a good